Oh my goodness, I had so much fun trying some new techniques I found here on YouTube. It's the very first time I'm trying all three of them, so you're getting the real deal here. And tips for what to do if something doesn't turn out exactly the way you were hoping. I made a whole bunch of cards, so let's get started. I'm starting with a homemade ink smoosher. This idea came from NB Cards, and I'll link her channel below. But the thinking is that if you use this, you'll have more control over your ink smooshing. I start with a large freezer bag. You want flexible plastic of some sort. Probably cling film would work as well, although this is pretty sturdy and will likely last longer. Then you wrap it around a bunch of crunched up paper towel and secure it with some tape. Okay, that's pretty easy. I pressed some Skylight ink onto my glass mat, added a bit of water, and then I picked it up with my smoosher. Okay, that's pretty cool. I kept working through some of my colors, and I have to admit, I'm not sure what I was thinking. These are not my colors, and I noticed that because I'm adding water, the colors are not even as vibrant as I would probably want them to be. These dye inks are also translucent, so they're blending as I'm layering. I'm sure if you use your oxides, you'll get more of an opaque layering look, especially if you dry between layers. I'm working with my regular hammermill cardstock here, so watercolor paper might also give a different result. I tried to dry when my panel got too wet, and I added some oranges, yellows, and finally some browns. When I'd built up as many layers as I thought I could stand, I've put the panel in my splatter box and spritzed it with shimmer spray as well as some gold metallic watercolor. I don't love it, but it's definitely the colors I'm having a problem with, not the process. I have found that the best thing to do when you have a panel you don't love is to cut it down, like way down. I cut 9 little circles, and now don't they look interesting and mysterious? Even a little bit pretty. I added some coppery mats and popped them up on a minty background with a dark brown frame. I think that one-of-a-kind sentiment is really appropriate for this one. And then I had the rest of the panel left, so I quickly made a card with it by backing it on a brown panel and adding a Concord and Ninth die-cut birthday sentiment. This homemade smoosher is easy to make, easy to clean, and easy to keep on hand for next time, when I will definitely try colors I'm more comfortable with. Next is a hack for getting perfectly crisp stencil results with watercolors. No pixie spray or adhesive is required. I grabbed the beautiful poinsettia stencil from a Colorful Life Designs. If you like this one, you can get 10% off with code ART10. I'll put that link in the description for you. Next, I activated some of my watercolors by spritzing water over top. This is an old set from Altenew. I don't do much watercoloring, and this one has really served me well over the years. I mixed a couple of reds in the lid that I'm using as a palette, and I added a bit of water. And then here's the hack. Use a blending brush to pick up the mixture and put it on your cardstock. This time I am using watercolor cardstock, and it's going down pretty easily. I filled it in with the first layer, and then I decided to try the metallic gold for the center of the poinsettia. Again, I picked some up and put it in the lid, and then picked it up with another brush. The thinking here is that watercolor brushes are meant to hold a lot of water. So if you use them to color in the stencil, it's easy for that excess water to get underneath the stencil. But with these blending brushes, they're not designed to hold so much water, so you get more of a blending experience rather than a painting experience. I hope that makes sense. I went back over the flower a couple more times with some different shades of red to deepen it up, and in the end, I think it looks amazing. The stenciling is definitely crisp and almost dimensional. Once again, I added some shimmer spray and some gold splatter. These two things are great if you're ever trying to hide any flaws, but honestly, I don't see any here. To finish this card, I trimmed the panel, added a black mat, and a scripty waffle flower Mary sentiment die cut. This would be a good one to make multiples with. You could stamp the sentiment instead of die cutting to save some time. So that's pretty, but I wasn't sure if it gave a look that's much different from ink blending, so I wanted to try it again. This time I used my regular hammermill cardstock instead of watercolor cardstock, and a pretty flouncy stencil from Alex Liberia. And this time I stuck to colors I'm comfortable with: magenta, yellow, and blue. I won't spend a lot of time here since the process is pretty much the same, except that this time I left the stencil in place when I spritzed with the shimmer spray and then splattered with the gold. So only the colored areas have that shimmer, with clean white areas in between. Just before I show you the cards, I just wanted to show you that I cleaned the brushes by rubbing them on a baby wipe and then on a fluffy towel. They are wet, so I wouldn't want to use them again for ink blending right now, but by the next day they were dry and they worked fine. I used this panel to get a 2-for-1 by simply cutting a circle from the center of it. I used a waffle flower Mother's Day sentiment die for the first one, cut from a chrome metallic cardstock, which works well with the soft rainbow colors. And then the second one is just the reverse, a white panel with the colorful circle in the center with a simple congrats die cut from Simon Says stamp. I added 3 scored lines on the white panel for a little interest. I like this technique and I'm happy with the cards, but I'm not sure if it's that different from ink blending. It definitely solves a problem that watercolors might have, and it gives an option for us ink blenders. Technique 3 is not something I can link you to because I was a genius and I ordered these better press plates thinking they were dies. I don't have a better press, by the way. I really wish they were dies, just in case anyone from Spellbinders is listening. But it got me thinking about whether I could use them as better press plates without the machine. It took me quite a few tries to finally get my sandwich right, and I know it's not going to make you very happy since it's made up of plates that not everyone has. I started with a green Gemini plate for double-sided die cutting, and then a magnetic iCrafter Pro deck. Then the plates face up. I figured I would try both at the same time, and since I had a circle die out, I thought I would see if I could cut and print at the same time. Spoiler alert. I inked the plates up with Catherine Pooler ink on the top one and Concord and Ninth ink on the bottom. Concord and Ninth has thinner foam pads, so it was harder to get it on the plate without getting it everywhere else. Then I put my cardstock in, and then finally my top plate, which is a Sizzix plate for a big shot. These are slightly thinner than the Gemini or Platinum 6 cutting plates. And the red came out great. There is a slight amount of texture, but not a ton, but this is definitely usable. The green looks like it shifted a little bit maybe, and that circle die definitely did not cut through. For cleanup, I used a baby wipe. I can see that the red ink has stained the one plate, but that's pretty typical for red ink. To finish this one, I cut it with a circle die and added a die cut branch and berries from Concord and Ninth. I added a Julie Hickey Joy sentiment with a vellum shadow, and I backed it onto a panel that I gave an embossed look with a cover plate die cut from Concord and Ninth on white cardstock. And I didn't want to give up on the other one, so I went back and tried it one more time, this time with Catherine Pooler ink and a circle of white cardstock that I taped in place before running it through. Going back to the sandwich, don't be afraid to play around with the plates you have, along with cardstock shims if you need, to find one that works if this is something you want to try. I definitely have an eclectic collection of plates that I've gathered over the years. To finish this one, I backed the dot circle onto a red mat and added a layered Joy die cut sentiment from Tim Holtz. I think the dots and the font give almost a comic book feel. My background is another form of faux embossing, but instead of a cover plate, I used a little Christmas tree die cut that I had cut a whole bunch of times and glued onto a panel, all of which had been blended with some green inks. I actually found this really refreshing, to challenge myself to do some new things and work through them. I'd love to hear the latest new technique you've tried. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.